this edition of Defense News Weekly, we'll tell you what Gulf nation is eyeing the American F-35, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial turns 35, and a former Marine takes up a new challenge. With in-depth interviews, up-close video, and leading analysis, this is Defense News Weekly. Welcome to Defense News Weekly. I'm James Williams, in for Jeff Martin, who is on assignment in Dubai. Thanks for joining us. U.S. Navy leaders have been considering recommissioning some old frigates to boost the number of ships in the fleet. But documents obtained by Defense News reveal some pushback on that idea. An internal memo circulated in the Chief of Naval Operations Office in October estimated that bringing back 10 Perry-class frigates would cost more than $4 billion over 10 years. Another memo recommends putting the money toward destroyer and cruiser modernization, as well as littoral ship procurement and development of the next generation frigate. China continues building a naval base in Djibouti, and satellite imagery shows it to be a massive fortress. Officials say it will be a logistics support base for ships operating in the Gulf of Aden and Arabian Sea. The base reportedly contains numerous storage barracks, an ammunition point, an office complex, a heliport with a 1,300-foot runway, a control tower, a large hangar, and 7 smaller hangars to support helicopter deployments. Some say China is setting up an expeditionary force it can use to protect China's economic and commercial interest in Africa. Jeff Martin is on assignment in Dubai, covering both the International Air Chiefs Conference and the Dubai Air Show. The conference kicked off events, hosting representatives from the air forces of many nations. Its central theme, 5th-generation capabilities, especially the F-35.
The International Air Chiefs Conference was held here at the Jumeirah Beach Resort, right alongside the Gulf in Dubai. Now, before this conference even began, the U.S. Air Force made some news as they confirmed Defense News reporting that the United Arab Emirates has entered the process to possibly acquire the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
And here in the Gulf, they share many of the same adversaries and the same challenges, and so we'd look to provide capabilities. So the discussion's ongoing now with the new administration on selling F-35s to partner nations that need them and require them. Anytime you go through that, there's a process to do that, so they've started the process.
But General Wilson also said that other countries in the Gulf, beyond the UAE, could acquire the F-35.
I think we're always evaluating, capabilities what's the optimum capabilities that our partners need based on the threats. And again, as we look here in the Middle East, that we share common threats. And so we're looking at options on who we'd share those with in the Gulf.
According to the UAE's Assistant Undersecretary for Support, Major General Abdullah Al-Hashmi, if the UAE were to acquire the plane, it would be a big deal for the Gulf country.
The reason UAE is quite important into buying that aircraft because we are always with the United States into different missions.
But as of yet, even American F-35s have yet to deploy to the Middle East. So as for when they could arrive in the region, Defense News asked Lieutenant General Jeffrey Harigian.
And when you talk about its stealth, sensor fusion, and its ability to integrate data and then allow the airmen that operating inside that network make faster decisions, you really could come up with a myriad of operational scenarios, whether it be in the Middle East, other parts of the globe, that you would want that capability. So as I look across our region, you could see a high-end fight. I would also offer, given its network capability, there are scenarios inside of a counter-terrorist type of activity that it would be helpful.
Now, the next step for the UAE in acquiring the F-35 would be a classified briefing. But when asked, General Wilson declined to comment about when that might happen. Reporting in Dubai, Jeff Martin, Defense News Weekly.
One of the key partners on the F-35 is Canada, but even they may not even buy it. Jeff Martin caught up with the commander of the Canadian Air Force and found out more on the country's fighter replacement program.
Here at the Dubai International Air Chiefs Conference, 5th-generation capabilities like those of the F-35 are the main topic. But the acquisition of that aircraft is also getting some attention. Defense News spoke to Lieutenant General Michael Hood, the commander of the Royal Canadian Air Force, about his country's fighter competition. He told us that Canada is looking for an interim fighter to replace older FA-18 Hornets before holding a competition for a next-generation fighter. That's something General Hood would like to see soon.
A 2019 RFP would get us into contract probably by about 2021, and certainly my advice to government is the sooner the better.
Originally, Canada was set to acquire the F-35. But the Trudeau government had different plans.
Well, I think the F-35s will be certainly be an option and a strong contender in there. But this government is committed to an open and transparent competition. The idea of competition is important to them. And so they've opened it up. There's no doubt that the F-35 will compete. But there are others that may wish to compete as well. And our goal is to get the best aircraft for Canada.
So as for what Canada could acquire in the interim, there appear to be two options. One is to buy Boeing's FA-18 Super Hornet, but due to a trade dispute, that deal could be in jeopardy. The other is to buy used FA-18s from Australia, but doing so would require upgrades.
There's some structural upgrades that we would have to do because, of course, they were at end of life in Australia, and our own, while they're very common to the Australian ones, we've done one more set of life cycle improvements that we would have to do. So there are no specific timelines right now, other than certainly within the next couple of years.
So as it seems, the Canadian fighter replacement question is still up in the air. For more coverage, you can visit DefenseNews.com, and reporting in Dubai for Defense News, I'm Jeff Martin.
The air show featured several aircraft making their international debut, like Japan's newest airlifter.
Day one of the Dubai Air Show was dominated by the aircraft standing behind me. That's the Kawasaki C2 airlifter. Now, it's the first airlifter that Japan has ever sought to export to another country, and that's a huge deal. Possible countries they're looking at include the United Arab Emirates and New Zealand, as rumors are circulating here around the show, but the Japanese won't go into any other detail about who exactly might be in the market for this aircraft. The Japanese themselves say they're hoping to have about 30 of them in service, and these aircraft can be used from everything from humanitarian missions to dropping paratroops to just basic airlift like you'd find in any military around the world. So there's lots of possible uses. They see a possible market as countries that are retiring older model C-130s, upgrading to this twin-engine C2. It does bear a lot of similarity to the C-17, but they say no work with Boeing was done on this aircraft. For more coverage of the Dubai Air Show from Defense News, be sure to visit DefenseNews.com. And reporting in Dubai, Jeff Martin, Defense News Weekly.
The Dubai Air Show is heavily focused on commercial aircraft, but they have military aircraft as well. Jeff Martin takes a look at some of them.
There are lots of military aircraft on display here at the Dubai Air Show. One of those is the Emirati Mirage 2000 over my shoulder. Let's go take a look at some of the other aircraft on display. The United States had the largest presence of any military at the show, with 11 aircraft from the Air Force, Marine Corps, and Navy. They ranged from the E-3 Sentry to the F-22 Raptor, and even the V-22 Osprey. The United Arab Emirates, who hosted the show, also showed off their F-16 Desert Falcon. The Kawasaki C2 airlifter made its international debut, and Japan hopes it could have its first foreign sale soon. Other airlifters on display included the Antonov An-70 from the Ukraine and the Airbus A400M. Another modified airlifter was the Airbus C295, which had an armed ISR variant on display. There were also lots of fighters on display, from the Dassault Rafale to the Saab Gripen to the Pakistani JF-17, and even 2 Eurofighter Typhoons, one from Saudi Arabia and another for marketing. Russia also made an appearance, displaying the highly maneuverable Su-35 and the Su-30 demo team. In addition, the Chinese J-10 demo team also performed at the show, giving audiences a view in an aircraft not always seen in the West. Light attack aircraft also got a lot of talk, with the UAE's first indigenous military aircraft, the B-250, making its debut. And another light attack aircraft on display was the Textron Scorpion, fresh off of demonstrations in Saudi Arabia. Military helicopters were also popular, with an Emirati AH-64 Apache drawing big crowds and Turkey's T-129 Attack making its debut. To see and read more of our coverage, be sure to visit DefenseNews.com. And reporting at the Dubai Air Show, Jeff Martin, Defense News Weekly.
To keep up to date with all of our coverage, be sure to visit our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn pages. When we come back, architect Maya Lin speaks at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial for the first time in 10 years. And finding specific names on the wall just got a whole lot easier. The Vietnam War touched so many Americans in a way unlike any other conflict. Tony Lombardo went to the National Archives to find out why.
The National Archives in Washington, D.C. has a brand new exhibit. It's called Remembering Vietnam, and it's going to run until January 2019, and it answers a few questions. Number one, why did the U.S. get involved in Vietnam? Why did it take so long? And why is it so controversial, even today?
The National Archives wanted to tell the story because the National Archives records are so important to veterans, for one reason. Another reason is that the archivist of the United States, David Ferriero, is himself a Vietnam veteran. He was a Navy corpsman on a hospital ship off of Da Nang in 1970. And he felt that we could not let this anniversary of the height of the Vietnam War go by without telling the story and sharing our records about the Vietnam War.
In the book, Nothing Ever Dies, Vietnam and the Memory of War, Viet Thanh Nguyen writes that wars are fought twice, once on the battlefield and once in memory. And that's what Remembering Vietnam is all about. We're sharing the memories of veterans as well as others involved in or affected by the war. The exhibit examines the human consequences of war and provides a variety of lenses through which to view history. It attempts to answer questions that have remained unanswered for 5 decades.
Service members, perhaps like all Americans, even I've spoken to some who served in the Vietnam War, still had many questions about what happened. It's such a long history, such a complex history. I think that anybody can learn a great deal about our involvement there.
In honor of the exhibit opening this week, the National Archives is hosting many special programs. You may have noticed the helicopters this morning on your way into the building. We have 3 original Vietnam War era aircraft and some of the pilots here joining us.
We're here to help with the opening of the Remember Vietnam series. It's here in the National Archives, and we're honored to have the aircraft here. I flew helicopters in Vietnam.
Tell me what that was like.
19, 20 years old, and having something like this to not say play with, but to be able to fly and it turned a lot of us into men and responsibility. I think it helps bring honor to the Vietnam veterans and an understanding of the people that maybe didn't understand the whole thing that was going on in Vietnam. They can come and look at this and may get a better understanding.
Do you have a message for the men and women serving today?
Yeah, thank you for your service. We honor you.
It's been 35 years since the Vietnam Veterans Memorial opened in Washington, D.C., to both fanfare and controversy. But as Ben Murray found out this week, the power of the wall remains strong.
For Vietnam veterans from around the country, this week's commemoration of the 35th anniversary of the wall in Washington, D.C. was an important milestone.
Thank you to our Vietnam veterans, their families, to all of our veterans, all here, thank you.
For men like Gary Short and Frederick Sona Jr., it was a chance to connect with fellow veterans, some of whom made it home and some who did not.
Fred and I were in Vietnam together. The landing zone we're on got hit one night, and on that particular panel right there, 8 of our brothers died that night, and so Fred and I came to honor them today.
Short and Sona were separated on the battlefield in Vietnam and came together at the wall for just the second time in 50 years to place a memento for their fallen brethren.
That's a plaque that was made for me. It's the 2nd and 7th Cavalry, 1st Cavalry Division, and it says Brothers Forever, because that's what we are.
Hundreds of veterans were in attendance for the commemoration event, which included comments from the monument's designer, Maya Lin, who spoke about her inspiration for the wall.
I envisioned cutting open the earth and polishing the earth's open sides. The walls would not be massive, but instead thin and light, so that the names alone become the object.
For many, this week's event was a testament to the power of Lin's design and provided an emotional catharsis.
It's very humbling to be in front of this wall and know that they were your generation, your age, and unfortunately they didn't come home. And sometimes you have to wonder, is there a purpose in life? Where if you did come home, the situation affecting all of us, that you'd want to belong to something. I belong to Vietnam Veterans America and reach out, help your fellow Vietnam veterans, help improve their lives and their families and get the help that they need. And that's the most important thing, and this is a great day for all of us to serve. It's a great day for our country, and it's a big inspiration to myself, and it's very humbling.
And for veterans like Short and Sona, the event was both a chance for a reunion and a way to face the trauma of the war.
I just thank everyone for being here for Veterans Day. I appreciate what they're allowing us to feel. It allows me to deal with some emotions that I've been holding inside to release when I come here and visit my brothers again.
It's a really moving experience, and having Fred here today, is like one of the high points of my whole trip to Washington and my life for that matter. He's my brother. Brothers forever.
There are more than 58,000 names on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, so you can imagine how difficult it can be finding the exact location of a loved one's name. But don't worry, there's now an app for that.
We have great volunteers out here at the wall that help visitors find people and do rubbings, those sorts of things. But unfortunately, a lot of times people come and there's not a person that can give them that tour. So this app actually helps people find the names. You can look up a specific name, or you can use the mobile tour part, and it will actually point out specific names for you and help you learn about specific people. I'm actually going to start the mobile tour, and we're going to move down, and it is going to recognize where we are, and it is pointing out here that there is a stop here. This is panel West 23, and it's pointing me to Sharon Lane, right down here. Sharon Lane is one of 8 women that are on the wall. She is the only one to have died of hostile action, one of the 8 nurses. And it talks a little bit about the role of women in Vietnam and medical advances of that time, sort of some of those things that the nurses were involved with helping develop. And also, it's telling me that right above her is Dan Bullock. Dan Bullock is the youngest person listed on the wall. He was a United States Marine, and he was 15 years old when he died.
You can download the phone app from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund website at vvmf.org/app. When we come back, find out why one wounded veteran committed himself to a month of marathons. On this week's Money Minute, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack talks about changes to the active duty retirement system.
The Department of Defense is rolling out a new retirement plan for the uniformed services called the Blended Retirement System, or BRS. While the previous system only grants retirement pay to service members who complete at least 20 years of active military service, the BRS will combine the old system with a defined contribution plan known as the Thrift Savings Plan, or TSP. This means roughly 85% of the force will receive retirement benefits rather than the 19% that do today. Now, the defined annuity will be lowered by the BRS. So if you have the option, it's important to understand the benefits and trade-offs involved. Active component service members who joined before 2006 will remain under the old system. Active component service members who joined between January 1st, 2006 and January 1st, 2018 have a choice to make. But none will be automatically moved to the BRS. If you're in this group, you'll take a required course from the DoD explaining the details. Those who join after January 1st, 2018 will be automatically enrolled in the BRS. Visit militarypay.defense.gov/blended retirement for more information and links to the required training.
Thanks, Jeanette. When we come back, Senator Joni Ernst talks about how her military service helps her represent the people of Iowa. For more Defense News coverage, visit our website at DefenseNews.com. And be sure to subscribe to our Early Bird Brief. It's delivered to your inbox every weekday morning. Senator Joni Ernst is the first female combat veteran to serve in the United States Senate. She sat down with Defense News to discuss how her military experience has helped shape her views and how it impacts her role on the Senate Committee on Armed Services.
Well, one, I'm always honored and humbled not only to be a veteran, but to be serving the great state of Iowa in the United States Senate. And I think the experiences that I have had, whether it was serving in Operation Iraqi Freedom as a company commander, whether it was serving just in traditional guard duty as an M-Day battalion commander in the great state of Iowa, all of those experiences have given me a unique perspective in serving in the United States Senate and the types of policies that we should or should not have as it applies to our reservists, our National Guardsmen, and of course our active duty members. Well, I think there is a common theme always out there amongst our veterans: support the warrior, and support those that support the warrior, those men and women in uniform, making sure that they're properly trained, making sure that we are meeting their needs logistically, making sure they have the equipment that will improve their survivability in wartime. That is important. But we also need to go out and visit with members of the armed services. I still do that. Even though I'm a veteran, I make sure I'm talking to all levels of the chain of command, from sergeants, E4s, and all the way up to colonels and generals. As women are engaging out there, especially now that combat arms have been opened up to anyone that can meet the standards, I think it's important to be vocal on those types of issues. I am a strong believer in women serving in combat as long as they meet the standards that are set forth by our military. They must be able to maintain that standard in order to protect their teammates, their squad members, and so forth. So I love visiting about those issues, love engaging in those issues, but even going beyond that, I do hope that we can continue to see progress, especially when it comes to military sexual assault. I think our commanders really need to step forward and grab a hold of this issue. They need to own it. They need to make sure that there is a culture of awareness out there, there is a culture of non-acceptance, zero tolerance of anyone in a unit that is really being very aggressive to other members in their unit. That's disruptive for the entire unit. So we want to see commanders being held responsible for those actions. So that will continue to be a topic of conversation. How do we prevent sexual assault in the military, bottom line? How do we prevent it? That's my goal. And then also, when it comes to veterans issues, suicide, we still see a lot of examples out there of where perhaps the VA has failed in some manner in really working with a veteran that has suicidal ideations. We continue to combat that all across the nation. Our veterans area, our armed services areas, it is a common ground regardless of party. We all want to do the right thing for our veterans. We all want to do the right thing for our members in uniform. So we can come together on those issues. And I think that's really important that the American public see that we can engage in fruitful discussion in these areas and actually get work done, legislation that will better their lives.
Veteran Bonnie Carroll founded the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, or TAPS, after the loss of her husband, Brigadier General Tom Carroll. The organization provides emotional support, casework assistance, and care for those experiencing loss within the military community. In an interview with Defense News, Carroll outlined the services TAPS offers and what makes this program different.
When TAPS was founded in 1994, there were 4 core services that we identified that aren't addressed to this day anywhere else. First of those is peer-based emotional support, connecting families with others to companion them along this grief journey. We also have a 24/7 helpline that's live answer, 800-959-TAPS. We have casework assistance, which provides resources for those grieving a loss. And we have community-based care, connecting families to all the grief resources wherever they live in this country.
In the early 19th century, running was a form of punishment. Prisons used what was called a tread wheel to reform idle or lazy convicts. Some people might still refer to running as a form of punishment, but for others, the activity has become more therapeutic. Rob Jones is on a journey. He set out to run 31 marathons in 31 cities in 31 days. And everywhere he goes, Jones has plenty of company.
We are the mighty!
Jones was a Marine,
Mighty Marine Corps!
a combat engineer.
Sergeant Jones!
He deployed to Iraq
Sergeant Jones!
and Afghanistan.
Look at him!
His job was finding IEDs.
Dedicated!
But one day,
to the Corps!
an IED
to the nation!
found him. After losing both legs to a landmine, Jones not only had to learn how to walk again, but also how to return to an active lifestyle. He initially took up rowing. He and his team qualified for the 2012 Paralympic Games in London. They earned a bronze medal. Jones then got into cycling and eventually running. Jones is raising awareness and money for wounded veteran charities.
I think what I'm proving out here today, with all these people coming out supporting me in the cold, is that America loves veterans. and veterans aren't alone out here.
His commitment to fellow wounded veterans has caught the attention and admiration of countless folks around the nation.
Rob's message is one of 100% positivity, not only for who he is and what he is doing, but a very simple message to anybody that if you put your mind to it, you can do it.
Never give up. Even if you go to combat, you're wounded, or you have PTS. I mean, you just never give up. You stay focused, as a Marine always should.
Congratulations, Rob. Well, that's all we have time for this week. But if you want to see and read more, be sure to head over to DefenseNews.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.